You're listening to the Banríon Show. It's 8 in the evening. Tune in every night at 8 to listen to the Banríon Show on Irish News Radio or ITV.ie. And you can contact anything that you've heard or if anything you'd like to discuss at news@irishnews.net.
The Banríon Show. Today we will be talking about Islam and what is Islam. And do you know what makes Islam? It's made of 3 books. The main 3 is Quran, Sunnah and Hadith. And all these make Shia, the Islamic law. But before we get into Islam, I want to discuss the disgusting, horrible comments of Leo. His pure disgust for the heritage, the culture, the indigenous people of Ireland. He turns my stomach, the whole government. And their disgust at the indigenous Irish people and the insults thrown at the Irish people. His latest one is the immigrants are more likely to work than the Irish and pay taxes. His intolerance and his disrespect for the native Irish people turns my stomach. That man needs to be gone with the rest of the government. It is disgusting. Their dislike, their disrespect for the Irish native people who have worked all over the world, who have had a brilliant reputation with the Americans, the English for work. How he turns his nose up at them makes me sick. And how proudly he says that 6 in every 1 are parents who weren't born in Irish. So the Irish will be overrun within such a short period of time. So the Irish will be foreigners in their own home with no work, no place to live. And he's cheering this on. As he says, they're better taxpayers. He turns my stomach. And if people, you don't wake up and stop paying the taxes, stop, go to your employers and stop paying the taxes. We are getting overrun anyway, but you might as well put it into a trust fund until this government is broken down. Put away your money. Go to your employer and say, I pay my own taxes. And you're under no obligation to pay the employer. The employer has no obligations to pay. That's up to you. And your work it's actually free. You can't charge for labour because it's like bartering. But I'm going to go on to Islam now. I had to mention that evil and the disgusting government. So basically, we're going to start with it's a breakdown of 3 books, and it tells Muslims how they live, how they eat, how they breathe, how they go to bed, what side of the bed to step in, how they get into a shower, how they get out of a shower. So the first book is called the Quran. Now there's different ways of spelling it, but it's a collection of a book of 140 chapters, believed to be given to Muhammad from Allah. 86 were written in Mecca and 28 in Medina. They're in no real order, and nobody knows why they're not in any real order. Now, the later parts, the ones in Medina, the 28 ones, cancels out, if there's any contradictions, the 86 in Mecca. So the older verses are more important than the earlier ones, which is when he went cuckoo in the bloody cave. But let's move on to the next book. The next book is Sunnah. This is the teaching of Muhammad. So as a Muslim, this is the second most important book that you must read and understand. This is how you must live your life, how you must follow, what you must follow. It's the 2 most important books, what you do, how you do it, and when you do it. So, and that's why Muhammad became the prophet. The third most important book is the Hadith. Now, there was many Hadith books written, but the one that said is the true Hadith is Salit al-Akar, an imam who wrote 2,330 not repeated verses and 7,700, but all of those are repeated. So the book was 7,700, but 2,230 were not repeated. On stories on how Muhammad lived his life with his young bride, and quite a disgusting stories in it, and how he had sex with her, and we've kind of talked about that on our gruesome Tuesday, what he did to her and how he made her clean and scrub his cum off his clothes. Disgusting man after he tied her. But also about his life. He was a warlord, and how he killed 900 Jews himself personally, and how his friends came to him and how he explained how to cut a female's genitals, her to have a female mutilation, because his friend came to him. So what his friends came, and even about beating of wives, and how they must obey their husbands, and basically they're nothing. So that is what Islam, and they're the three main books in Islam. Now, without the Hadith, you can't have Shia law. It couldn't exist. So they both coincide. So the Quran and the Sunnah make Islam, and the Quran, Sunnah, and the Hadith make Sharia. So that's how it works. Now, the Sharia law is an Islamic law based on the Quran, the Hadith, and the Sunnah. It's on why he was the prophet. The Sunnah is why he was the prophet. And all countries, wherever Muslims go, must follow it. It dictates your life from everything, how you eat, your freedom. It's how you shower, to everything, to every single thing you must do. Now, Sharia cannot exist without Islam. They cannot exist without each other, without all of them. Islam and Sharia law are together. You cannot be one without the other. And then the problem with this is when Muslims come into the Western world, the laws in the country are very different from Sharia law, because obviously it's not set on gender apartheid and child marriage and paedophilia and all sorts of disgusting things that Islam is. So you can't be both. You either choose to become an ex-Muslim and not follow Sharia law, or you become westernized and you leave it, which is the death penalty. So it's very difficult. So when you come in, you can't pick both, because they're very different. Sharia law is an Islamic law, and they say to Muslims, it's the most important law. No man-made law is like the law of God, so you must follow it. So this is where it all becomes very messy, and where it becomes very dangerous for us, because their respect for females and children is quite disturbing, quite disgusting. But so it follows every part of your life, and it's part of Muslims to indoctrinate you into their religion. I've talked about that before, the Dawan Day, where they try to induct other non-Muslims into their religion. So it is quite a dangerous thing. Their whole idea is to indoctrinate everyone. There's also a thing called Christian tax, which I will talk about next week, when they get into Christian countries and they take over. Because you've got to remember, all these countries, like Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, Lebanon, Egypt, weren't Muslims. They weren't Islamic countries before. Before Islam came in, took their culture, their country, their lives away. And that is what Islam does. It's a very, very dangerous ideology. It's nothing to look lightly on. And the less you know about it, the more dangerous it is, because you just think they're just funny people with their little Grim Reaper outfits on. It's far, far more than that. It's an ideology. It's an ideology about war and takeover. Every country Muslims go into, when a Muslim puts his feet on the ground, that land becomes Islamic, and it's the duty of every Muslim to work and bring every country to Islam, to an Islamic state. And that is the wish of every Muslim, that they conquer every country. So do you see where we're going with this? It's a very, very dangerous. And when you have a government like Ireland who cannot stand the indigenous race, he would be fair to have foreigners running and living, and that the Irish just leave Ireland or just don't exist anymore because it's disrespect for the government. Thank you very much for listening to the Banríon Show. This is Irish News Radio. Talk to you later. Thank you.
You are listening to Irish News Radio and irishnews.net. Email news@irishnews.net.